Hi, my name is Professor Imler, and we will be talking about the ship of Theseus today. So, the ship of Theseus problem, it helps us ponder the question of how does change impact identity? When, during the course of something's development or change, as a thing changes, at what point exactly does it become a different thing entirely? Similar things don't seem to be the same thing, but all of us are changing all of the time. So at what point do we change into different things? You were almost a completely different person 10 years ago than you are today, in terms of your body, in terms of your mind, in terms of how you think, etc. So this is an important question. The ship of Theseus helps us to start problematizing the issues. So this comes initially from Plutarch. He writes in 75 CE. He gives an account of the travels and deeds of Theseus. Now, you can say Theseus or Theseus, it's the same. It's all about how you inflect the vowels. So the following passage is where the thought experiment comes from. So this is what he writes. The ship wherein Theseus and the youth of Athens returned had 30 oars, and was preserved by the Athenians down even through the time of Demetrius Phalereus, for they took away the old planks as they decayed, putting in new and stronger timber in their place, insomuch that this ship became a standing example among the philosophers for the logical question of things that grow. One side holding that the ship remained the same, and the other contending that it was not the same. Using this as our base, we can now talk about a couple of variations of the case, each highlighting a particular problem of identity. So, situation 1, the 30-year journey of Theseus. Here are the facts, and we'll list them one by one. Theseus leaves Athens in 460 BCE for a 30-year journey. During the course of his voyage, he constantly is repairing his ship, cutting down trees, using the lumber to replace worn sections of his ship, and casting old materials into the river and ocean. By the time he returns in 430 BCE to Athens, all of the materials in his ship have been replaced, but the ship does look identical to the one that left. So, let's talk about some names. So let's call the time he leaves Athens time A, and the time that he returns time B. And then let's call the ship that Theseus leaves in ship A, and the ship that he returns in ship B. Now let's talk about, now with these things in place, we can do an initial analysis. So we can say that ship A has the same pattern as ship B. Ship A shares none of the same materials as ship B. Theseus himself remains on the ship throughout the process of change. And the change from ship A to ship B has been gradual. So it wasn't like the ship exploded and they rebuilt the ship out of new parts. It was a bit by bit exchange. So our question is, does ship A equal ship B? So this brings up a question. What constitutes identity? Is it, does identity reside in the pattern itself? The pattern as it is made real through matter, so matter shaped by a pattern? When it comes to us, is it where our soul or consciousness resides? Or is it in the actual components of the thing in a particular arrangement? And so this brings up two opposing views of identity, at least of material objects. So the first one is the mereological theory of identity, MTI. This says that the identity of an object is dependent upon the identity and stability of its component parts. So this means if any part of the thing changes, it is now a new thing. It is now different than the thing it used to be. And since it's different, it cannot be the same. And so we might think about this logically or in terms of numbers might be the easiest way to think about this. So A equals A, basic law of identity. In order for something to remain the same, not merely similar, it has to remain, well, the same. It cannot change. So 3 is not equal to 4. 3 is not equal to 3.1. 3 is only ever equal to exactly 3. So that's the first view. The second view is what we call the spatiotemporal continuity view, right? We abbreviate this STC, something you'll need to remember. So this says a persistent object must trace a continuous path through space-time. And in this view, change of parts is allowed so long as the change is both gradual and the basic pattern remains. So think about us. Under the STC, we're the same. We have gradually changed. We all have the same basic pattern or DNA, but we have grown over time. But you can trace us. Where am I right now? Where was I 5 minutes ago? Where was I an hour ago? Where was I 5 years ago? You can trace a continuous path through space over time or through space-time. And at each point, you can say, okay, this is where this being has moved and it's changed gradually, and now it is in an office in Columbia, Missouri, where before it began, when we're talking about birth here, in Jefferson City, Missouri or something, right? So that's two views, the mereological theory of identity and the spatiotemporal continuity theory of identity. So according to MTI, ship A would not be equal to ship B because there's completely different parts. According to STC, ship A would be equal to ship B. And why? Because the change was gradual. You always knew where Theseus was. And we can trace the ship through time and space all the way back to the port of Athens back in 460. So that's how those two approaches would answer the question. But this brings up further questions, right? As we start thinking about things and coming to possible answers, that opens up new areas to think about. So then we're asked, which one is a better view of identity? Is it MTI or STC? And then what does this mean for us as we grow and we change? Okay, so that was the first one. Then we have another situation. So if that was easy to answer, let's throw another curveball. So similar set of facts, but notice where we change things. So Theseus leaves Athens for a 30-year journey. During his journey, he's continually repairing his ship. As he continually repairs his ship, he throws pieces of it overboard. By the time he gets back, he's completely rebuilt the ship. Same pattern, different materials. Now, here's our wrinkle. During that time, a scavenger has been following Theseus. And each time Theseus throws a piece off, the scavenger takes it and starts to rebuild, bit by bit, the ship with the same materials, with the same pattern. Now, 430 rolls around, and Theseus' ship, same pattern, completely different materials, pulls into the port of Athens, and right next to it, the scavenger ship, the same pattern and the same materials, pulls in right next to Theseus. Now, let's call the ship that Theseus left in, ship A, the ship that he returns in, ship B, and then we'll call the scavenger ship, ship C. So now let's talk about some initial analysis. The pattern is the same in each ship, right? So A, B, and C all have the same pattern. Ship A shares none of the same materials as ship B. Ship A shares all of the same materials in the same pattern as ship C. Theseus himself has remained on ship A-ship B, right? So as that change happened. The change from ship A to ship B was gradual, and the pattern remained. But the change from ship A to ship C was drastic, right? You began with one part in isolation, and then you slowly built up the ship. And so our question again is, which of the ships that returned to Athens at time B is the same as the ship that left at time A? So we can ask 3 questions. Is ship A equal or not equal to ship B? Is ship A equal or not equal to ship C? And then an interesting question in terms of patterns, is ship B equal to ship C? And so with that, I'll leave you to discuss that in the forums.